Russia has once again crippled its war effort after an embarrassing incident took place in the Kursk Oblast region. On the 13th of January, it was reported that Russian drones, designed to defend, actually ended up striking their own air defense system after they mistook the rare and expensive air defense vehicle as a Ukrainian product. Not only did this cause chaos, but it also exposed some shocking vulnerabilities in Russia's military operations. What makes this even more of an embarrassment is that this isn't the first time that Russia has done something so foolish. In this video, we will unpack what went wrong, why it happened, and what this means for the future of this intense conflict. So let's start with the obvious question. How did such an expensive mistake occur? Well, when North Korea sent their 12,000-strong 11th Army Corps to Russia to help out with the ongoing conflict against Ukrainian forces, they came heavily equipped. They had all sorts of heavy weaponry like anti-tank vehicles, howitzers, and rocket launchers. Among their gear was a rather unique air defense vehicle. This vehicle was a hybrid, combining the large wheeled chassis with the radar and missile launchers from the Russian-designed Tor surface-to-air missile system, which typically operates on tracks. This high-level system was equipped with state-of-the-art radar and missile technology. They're designed to track and intercept enemy aircraft, missiles, and drones. It was a rare and highly effective vehicle that was meant to give Russia the edge over Ukraine. This air defense system was so new and so rare, in fact, that Russian forces didn't recognize it as friendly, and so they targeted and destroyed it using drones. It seems that the drone teams in Kursk were not informed about the arrival of this rare North Korean system, leading to an unfortunate and costly mistake. I guess at this point the Russians are so used to old equipment that they shoot everything new that they see. If the story ends here, then maybe Putin could save some face, but no, it gets worse. It's reported that initially Russian forces were quite pleased with themselves, thinking they had taken out a significant piece of Ukrainian equipment. They even shared a video montage of their successful strike, proudly displaying their supposed victory. The shame didn't sink in until much later when outside analysts quickly identified the wreckage not as a Western radar system, but as a North Korean Tor-SAM vehicle on a cab chassis. Talk about being incompetent. So what really went wrong? There are a few potential reasons for this mistake. One possibility is miscommunication within the Russian forces. In the heat of the moment, it's not uncommon for information to get lost or misunderstood. The drones might have received incorrect data, leading them to target the wrong system. Another possibility is operational errors. The operators of the drones might have made mistakes while identifying targets, leading to the destruction of their own assets. But that's not all. There are also theories suggesting sabotage or internal political dynamics at play. Some experts believe that this incident could be a result of internal power struggles within the Russian military. It's possible that certain factions within the military wanted to undermine the effectiveness of the North Korean system for their own gain. We'll talk more about this in a few minutes when we dive into Putin's ever-loosening grip on power. The poor coordination and confusion between the Russians and North Koreans extend to more than just the destruction of property. These two allies have spent a good portion of this war attacking and killing each other. Let's talk about a few times the Russians have accidentally targeted their own North Korean allies. One major incident happened in the Kursk region, where North Korean soldiers were fighting alongside Russian troops against the Ukrainians. In the middle of the battle, there was a big mix-up. The language barrier made it really hard for Russian and North Korean soldiers to communicate. Because of this, Russian troops ended up mistakenly firing on the North Koreans, their own allies. This tragic mistake led to the deaths of several North Korean soldiers, all because of poor communication and coordination. Another tough situation was when North Korean soldiers were used as drone bait. The idea was for these soldiers to attract Ukrainian drones so the Russians could shoot them down. A diary found on a deceased North Korean soldier revealed that they knew about their grim role, but they had no room to refuse. This tactic caused significant losses among the North Korean troops who were essentially sacrificed for a strategic goal. What makes it worse is that it is highly likely that their deaths were in vain, given the expert nature of Ukraine's drone divisions. It's also a harsh example of how brutal Putin is. After realizing that he has been suffering heavy losses on the battlefield, 822,030 as of the 21st of January, it seems his new tactic is to give the North Koreans all the risky jobs. After all, they are not his citizens. Sounds cruel for people who are there to help you, doesn't it? As if all this doesn't sound bad enough. There have been orders for North Korean soldiers to commit suicide instead of being captured by Ukrainian forces. Commanders even gave these soldiers grenades or makeshift blades to ensure they could end their own lives if necessary. This directive came from a fear of the consequences of being captured. Russia simply doesn't want information on their camps, troop movements, and preparations leaked to the enemy. These North Korean soldiers carried these grim tools, ready to end their lives to avoid the dishonor of capture. There was also an incident where North Korean troops accidentally fired on Chechen soldiers from the Akhmat battalion. Again, this happened due to poor communication and coordination. The language barrier played a big role too. Without proper communication, it was hard to tell friends from foes. This mistake led to unnecessary casualties on both sides, making an already chaotic battlefield even more complicated. Outside of the interactions with North Korea, Russia has been embarrassing itself throughout this war, with multiple incidents of friendly fire costing itself millions of dollars in the process. Before we jump into them, just a quick reminder to hit the like button down below. It helps us out tremendously in the algorithm. Let's start with a striking incident that happened on January 13th, 2024. On this day, Russian forces managed to drop 2 Kaliber missiles on their own territory. The first missile landed between 2 villages, Pavlovskaya and Atamanskaya, in the Krasnodar region. The second one fell in a field in the northern Leningrad region. The incident certainly caused quite a stir as people wondered how this could happen, especially after what had just happened days earlier. Just a few days prior, on January 8th, 2024, there was another incident in the Luhansk region. This area is claimed by Moscow but not fully under their control. A Russian aircraft accidentally dropped a bomb on the town of Rubezhnoye. It was described as an emergency discharge of the FAB-250 aircraft munition. Understandably, this led to an investigation by Russia's Ministry of Internal Affairs and their Ministry of Emergency Situations to figure out what went wrong. 2 accidents are plenty enough for anyone else, but not for Russia. There are more mishaps. We also have an incident from January 2nd, 2024, where Russia's Ministry of Defense had to admit that one of their warplanes hit the village of Petropavlovka in the Voronezh region by mistake. This strike left a huge crater and scattered debris, damaging 6 buildings in the process. Some residents even had to be relocated to temporary housing because of the damage. It was a pretty chaotic scene, and another chip on the people's confidence. Going back to June 16, 2023, Russia's Ministry of Defense published a video trying to pass off its own destroyed tank as Ukrainian. The video showed a burnout tank, which was later identified as a Russian T-80BV. Imagine celebrating hitting your own tank. Embarrassing. Another similar notable incident took place on April 22, 2023, in Sviatohirsk, Ukraine. During an attack, Russian forces again mistakenly destroyed one of their tanks. The tank was later confirmed to be Russian, adding yet another example of the confusion and chaos that can occur on the battlefield. But regardless of their frequency, don't think that such accidents happen and they don't have any form of consequence or reaction. When Russia accidentally destroys its own air defenses or has friendly fire incidents, it really shakes things up both at home and internationally. Let's talk about that for a second. Starting at home, these mistakes hit hard. People look to the military for protection, and when such big errors happen, they start doubting how safe they actually are. For example, when Russian drones destroyed their own North Korean air defense system in Kursk Oblast, it was a shocker. The public saw this as a huge mess-up and began questioning the military's ability to tell friends from foes. This kind of blunder makes citizens worry about their safety and whether the government can truly protect them. Such uncertainty then gives rise to domestic challenges, an action that erodes Putin's power. These incidents also drain military resources. Instead of focusing on essential tasks, the military has to spend time and money investigating these mistakes. They need to figure out what went wrong, put in measures to prevent it from happening again, and explain the situation to the public and government officials. This diversion can hamper the military's readiness and effectiveness. Morale takes a hit too. Soldiers need to have faith in their leaders and their fellow troops. When they see these kinds of mistakes, it can be really demoralizing. They might start doubting the decisions made by their commanders, which affects their performance and willingness to follow orders. This dip in morale can lead to a decrease in overall efficiency. They will question every decision they take since the aftermath can be costly. I mean, just imagine destroying $1 million weapon, then being expected to make a judgment call in the future. It's inevitable that you'd have serious self-doubt. Politically, the Russian government faces backlash as well. Opposition parties and critics jump on these mistakes, arguing that the government's inability to maintain a well-coordinated and effective military reflects poorly on its overall competence. This can lead to increased political tension and dissatisfaction among the public, potentially affecting the government's stability and support. Again, this all contributes to eroding Putin's power. Looking at the international scene, these incidents can tarnish Russia's reputation. Allies and enemies are watching closely, and such mistakes make Russia look less reliable and capable. This can strain diplomatic relations as other countries start questioning Russia's ability to handle complex military operations and whether they can trust Russia to honor its commitments. Take the friendly fire incidents involving North Korean troops, for example. These could strain the relationship between Russia and North Korea. North Korea might see these mistakes as a sign of disrespect and poor coordination, leading to mistrust. This can weaken the alliance and make future collaborations tougher. If the world sees Russia making these significant mistakes, it could also lead to a loss of respect and influence. Other countries might be less willing to cooperate with Russia on military and defense matters, viewing them as less competent and reliable. This can affect Russia's ability to form alliances and partnerships, impacting its strategic position on the global stage. After all, who wants to send their soldiers to a country where they get shot by the people they are trying to help? Though this is a very welcome outcome for the world, it's a nightmare for Russia. Enemies, on the other hand, see these incidents as signs of weakness. If Russia's military appears disorganized and prone to errors, other countries might feel they have a strategic edge and could exploit these vulnerabilities. This can escalate tensions and potentially lead to more conflicts. In the current case, Ukraine is having a field day, profiting from Russia's mistakes. These mistakes also emphasize the need for better training, communication, and coordination among military forces to avoid such errors. The international community might push for stricter safety protocols and measures to ensure that these kinds of incidents are minimized, especially when it comes to civilians being affected. The destruction of the North Korean air defense system by Russian drones also highlights the flaws in their identification and targeting processes. This could lead to calls for better technology and protocols to ensure the accurate identification of friendly forces so as to prevent similar mistakes. Outside of the domestic and international implications, there are heavy military implications to consider. After all, this is happening while Russia is in the middle of a war. When Russia mistakenly destroys its own equipment, like the air defense systems, it creates huge logistical challenges. Think about it, they need to replace valuable assets, and that takes time, money, and effort. For instance, losing an air defense system doesn't just mean losing the hardware. They have to manufacture or procure new ones, and this strains their military budget and logistics. So instead of focusing resources on critical areas, they're busy fixing these big mistakes. Now, losing these vital pieces of equipment also leaves some big gaps in their operational capabilities. Without enough air defenses, Russian forces become more vulnerable to Ukrainian air attacks. This vulnerability can give the Ukrainians a strategic advantage, allowing them to launch more effective aerial operations or move their ground forces with less risk. It's like giving your opponent a free pass to hit you where it hurts. We are going to dive deeper into the importance of these air defense systems in just a minute. These equipment losses also cause operational setbacks. Imagine planning a big operation and suddenly a key piece of equipment is out of the picture because of a friendly fire incident. Military leaders have to rethink their strategies and tactics on the fly. They might have to delay or change planned operations to account for the lost resources. This not only means missed opportunities, but also gives the enemy a chance to regroup or even counterattack. Friendly fire incidents, where Russian troops accidentally target their own soldiers, create even more chaos. Let's say a unit mistakenly attacks another friendly unit. This doesn't just result in casualties, it causes confusion and chaos on the battlefield. Commanders have to spend precious time and resources managing the aftermath, which disrupts the overall flow of operations. Such disruptions can lead to a loss of momentum in the conflict. Maintaining momentum is key in warfare. Any delay can shift the balance, giving the opposing side an upper hand. If Russian forces are constantly dealing with friendly fire incidents, it hampers their ability to keep up offensive pressure and meet their strategic goals. This creates openings for Ukrainian forces to regroup, strengthen their defenses, and launch their counteroffensives. There are also other logistical challenges beyond just immediate replacements to compensate for the losses. For example, sophisticated systems like air defenses involve more than just getting new parts. They need new personnel trained to operate and maintain these systems, which takes time and effort. This means even after getting replacements, there's a period where the new systems aren't fully operational, further weakening Russia's defensive capabilities. It's a drawn-out process that impacts their readiness. Another critical point is the strategic advantage these mistakes give to the enemy. When Ukrainian forces see these blunders, it can boost their morale and confidence. They might get bolder in their tactics, knowing that Russian forces are dealing with internal chaos. For example, if Ukrainian forces know Russian air defenses are compromised, they might ramp up their aerial operations, hitting the Russians where it hurts most. It's like an open invitation for the Ukrainians to exploit these weaknesses. These incidents also impact the allocation of resources. When Russia has to replace destroyed equipment, it might need to pull resources from other important areas. This can affect the overall balance of power in the region. Russia might have to cut back on other military operations or investments to cover these losses. This reallocation weakens their strategic position, giving their foes an edge. On top of that, these mistakes can cause internal turmoil within the Russian military. Leaders might face increased pressure to improve operational effectiveness and prevent future errors. This can lead to power struggles and changes in command structures, adding another layer of complexity to military operations. Internal power dynamics can shift, which can make an already challenging situation even more difficult to manage. In short, the military implications of Russia destroying its own equipment and friendly fire incidents during the Russo-Ukrainian War are significant. Left unchecked, they could be the seeds that result in Russia losing this 3-year war. We started off this video talking about Russia's big blunder with the air defense system and the shockwave it created. To add depth to that, let's talk about why the air defense systems are so crucial to Russia. First off, Russia is huge. We're talking about a vast territory that needs protecting. Air defense systems are crucial for keeping key locations, military bases, and cities safe from potential aerial threats. They act like a protective shield, making sure that enemy aircraft and missiles can't easily get through and cause damage. Another big reason is deterrence. Having strong air defenses makes other countries think twice before launching any aerial attacks or taking aggressive actions against Russia. It's like having a security system that discourages burglars. If they know it's there and it's tough to get past, they're less likely to try anything. When Ukraine knows that Russia is exposed in certain regions, then, well, it simply attacks those places. To fend off Ukraine and keep itself safe, Russia uses a layered approach for its air defenses, which means they have a combination of long-range, medium-range, and short-range systems. This layered setup creates multiple levels of protection, making it even harder for enemy aircraft and missiles to penetrate Russian airspace. Think of it as having several lines of defense, each one adding an extra layer of security. Now, Russia is known for having some of the world's most advanced air defense systems, like the S-400 and S-500. These systems are highly mobile, meaning they can be quickly deployed wherever they're needed. They're also capable of engaging multiple targets simultaneously, which makes them incredibly effective in combat situations. These air defense systems give Russia a lot of strategic flexibility. They can be deployed in different regions to respond to various threats, whether it's protecting the homeland or supporting military operations abroad. This flexibility allows Russia to adapt to changing situations and maintain a strong defensive posture. Another important aspect is that Russia's air defense systems are used by several other countries. By exporting these systems, Russia can strengthen its alliances and increase its influence globally. It's a way of building stronger relationships with other nations and showcasing their technological prowess. However, when these systems are easily destroyed or they show unpleasant performance in the field, then, well, Russia loses buyers. In essence, air defense systems are a cornerstone of Russia's military strategy. They provide essential protection, act as a deterrent, and offer strategic advantages both at home and internationally. Without these systems, Russia would be much more vulnerable to aerial threats and would have a harder time maintaining its security and influence on the global stage. So there you have it. Air defense systems are absolutely crucial for Russia, helping to keep the country safe, strong, and strategically flexible in a complex and often unpredictable world. With the importance of air defense systems established, let's take a look at what Ukraine is doing about it. When Russia's air defense systems fail or are absent, it leaves them wide open to various forms of attacks. Ukraine has been fighting this war using advanced technological systems to level the playing field, and they have been absolutely crushing Russia with them. Using drones and various UAVs, Ukrainians have managed to turn the tide of war against Russia. That is why Russia has been trying to deploy as many air defense systems as it can to combat this. That is why the North Korean system was such a big help, or well, supposed to be. The recent drone attacks on Moscow are a perfect example. These strikes have highlighted serious breaches in Russia's air defenses, revealing just how vulnerable they are. It's as if to prove that even Moscow, one of the most secure places in Russia, is not immune to their attacks. As the conflict continues, more Russian territories are coming under fire, which is a clear sign that their air defense is stretched thin. Let's look at some specific instances. On January 14th, 2025, Ukraine launched its largest aerial attack on Russian territory since the war began. This wasn't just a random attack, it was a well-coordinated strike targeting critical infrastructure in Bryansk, Saratov, and Tula regions, as well as the Republic of Tatarstan. Among the targets were a chemical factory that produces rocket fuel and ammunition, an oil depot near a Russian airbase, and an oil refinery. These targets were not chosen by chance. By hitting these sites, Ukraine aimed to disrupt Russia's military supply chain, making it harder for them to continue their operations. Coincidentally, or not, it was the day after Russia had blown up its North Korean air defense system. The impact of these strikes was immediate and significant. Schools in the Saratov region had to close temporarily, and several airports halted traffic. This not only caused logistical problems, but also showcased the immediate and tangible impact of compromised air defenses. When key infrastructure like oil refineries and chemical factories are hit, it directly affects the military's ability to function effectively. Fuel and ammunition are the lifeblood of any military operation, and disrupting these supplies can cripple military efforts. On January 18, 2025, Ukrainian drone strikes set multiple industrial sites in Russia ablaze. These strikes targeted fuel stores and other critical infrastructure, causing significant damage. The strikes were part of Ukraine's ongoing efforts to retaliate against Russian aggression and disrupt their supply lines. This strategy isn't just about hitting back, but also about strategically weakening Russia's operational capabilities. By targeting fuel stores, Ukraine aims to create supply chain bottlenecks, making it difficult for Russia to keep its military machinery running smoothly. Let's not forget the smaller, more frequent drone strikes that Ukraine has been carrying out. These strikes target Russian military facilities and energy sites, further weakening Russia's ability to sustain prolonged military operations. For instance, a recent drone strike on a Russian military base in the Belgorod region destroyed several key assets. These smaller strikes might not make the headlines as often, but they accumulate over time, causing sustained damage to Russian military capabilities. These continuous attacks highlight the critical need for robust air defenses. When these systems fail, the vulnerabilities become glaringly obvious. Ukrainian forces have been quick to exploit these gaps, carrying out precision strikes that have significant strategic impacts. For instance, when Russia's air defenses were compromised, Ukrainian forces managed to target and destroy a Russian supply convoy in the Donetsk region, causing substantial logistical setbacks. The absence of strong air defenses doesn't just affect the immediate combat scenarios. It also has long-term implications for Russia's strategic planning and logistics. When air defenses are down, Russia has to divert resources to repair and replace damaged infrastructure. This is not just about buying new equipment. It involves a comprehensive overhaul of their defense systems, retraining personnel, and ensuring that these new systems can be integrated effectively into their existing framework. All of this requires substantial investment, which strains their military budget. These issues also disrupt the supply chain. The destruction of key assets like fuel depots means that the military has to find alternative sources, which are not always readily available. This creates supply bottlenecks that can slow down or even halt military operations. For example, if an oil refinery is hit, it's not just about the immediate loss. It means finding new sources of fuel, transporting that fuel to where it's needed, and ensuring that it reaches the front lines in time. Each of these steps is a potential point of failure, and each disruption can have a cascading effect on military effectiveness. Friendly fire incidents, where Russian troops accidentally target their own soldiers or allies, compound these problems. These incidents create operational chaos and make it harder to maintain a coherent strategy. For instance, in another friendly fire incident in the Luhansk region, Russian artillery mistakenly targeted their own infantry, resulting in significant casualties. This kind of incident doesn't just cause immediate harm, it also disrupts operations, as commanders have to spend valuable time managing the fallout rather than focusing on the overall strategy. The strategic advantage gained by Ukrainian forces from these vulnerabilities is significant. When Ukrainian forces see these gaps, they can exploit them to gain the upper hand. For example, after identifying that a key Russian air defense system was down, Ukrainian forces launched a series of drone attacks on a Russian airbase, destroying several aircraft and further weakening Russia's air capabilities. These targeted strikes are not just about immediate damage, but about systematically dismantling Russia's military infrastructure. As Russia keeps fumbling the bag and Ukraine's drones become more of a challenge, it seems that the war in the skies is all but decided. Other nations have been helping Ukraine gear up and strengthen its air power. The US, Germany, and other nations have really stepped up to provide crucial support all out throughout this war by sharing systems like the Patriot missile defense system and the German-supplied Skynex system. These advanced systems are key for Ukraine as they defend against relentless Russian missile and drone strikes. But it's not just about the external support. Ukraine has been making significant efforts to develop its own air defense systems and drones. This move is all about reducing reliance on imports and boosting its domestic defense capabilities. The goal is to create homegrown systems that are just as sophisticated as those from the US and other countries. Given how they have been doing, it's safe to say they are well on their way. Staying ahead of threats from Russia is a continuous challenge. The combination of receiving advanced defense systems from allies and developing their own puts Ukraine in a stronger position to withstand ongoing aggression. It's clear that having the best technology is crucial in this ongoing conflict. Too bad Russia keeps being clumsy with theirs. In simple terms, the partnership between Ukraine and its allies, along with its domestic efforts, shows a comprehensive approach to national defense. It's an ongoing battle, but with the best technology and continuous innovation, Ukraine aims to stay prepared and resilient against any attacks. As we approach the anniversary of this brutal conflict, we can only hope that the light at the end of the tunnel is within view.